Duke hates women, girl fears men, but love hits them both hard. Let her go. The Duke's voice was low, deadly, and vibrated with suppressed violence. The entire ballroom froze. Sir Roland, a powerful aristocrat, sneered at the trembling paid companion, refusing to release her arm. She's nobody, Duke, just the help. But Alistair Whitecliffe, the man famous for despising society women, did the unthinkable. He stepped between them, shielding the terrified girl with his own body, and looked the room in the eye. She is under my protection, and in this house that makes her your superior. Hello, lovely. If you enjoy stories where broken hearts find a way to heal in the most unexpected places, I would be so grateful if you liked this video or subscribed to the channel. It helps me bring you more heartwarming tales of love, courage, and history. And if you have a moment, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I read every note, and it always brings a smile to my face. 1. The crowded charity committee meeting in London was loud, warm, and smelled intensely of lavender water and ambition. It was exactly the sort of place Alistair Whitecliffe, the Duke of Greyhaven, detested. He stood near the window, a tall, imposing figure in a dark coat, trying to look as unapproachable as a cliff face. It wasn't working. Lady Cecily Bramwell, a woman whose smile was as sharp as a diamond cutter, had him cornered. "But your Grace," she purred, tapping his arm with her fan. "The spring gala simply cannot happen without a patron, and since your dear late wife passed, well, society misses you. We need you to sponsor the ladies' event." Alistair felt the familiar tighten in his chest. It wasn't grief anymore, it was annoyance. Since the humiliation 3 years ago, when a different polished society lady had nearly trapped him into a marriage for his fortune. He had no patience for the game. Lady Cecily stepped closer, invading his space. "Just a signature, Alistair, and perhaps a promise of the first dance," he snapped. The frustration that had been building for an hour boiled over. He didn't shout, but his voice carried the heavy, undeniable weight of thunder. "No more. I will not be managed by women." The room went instantly silent. Fans stopped mid-flutter. Teacups paused halfway to mouths. The hum of gossip vanished, replaced by a shocked vacuum. On the other side of the room, Maisie Harrow froze. She was standing behind her aunt, holding a stack of ledgers against her chest like a shield. Maisie hated crowds. She hated loud voices even more. "Oh dear," her aunt, Lady Honora Harrow, whispered. Lady Honora was older, sharp-witted, and currently the chair of this disastrous meeting. He's certainly in a mood. The shock in the room rippled outward physically. People turned to look, and the crowd surged backward, away from the angry Duke. In the crush, a large gentleman stepped back without looking and slammed into Maisie. Maisie stumbled. The ledgers slipped from her grip. She flailed, trying to stay upright, her heart hammering a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She was going to fall, and in a room this crowded, that was a nightmare. A hand caught her elbow. It was a strong grip, firm and steady. Maisie looked up, gasping, and found herself staring directly into the stormy grey eyes of the Duke of Greyhaven. He had moved faster than anyone else. He wasn't looking at her with romance or charm. He was looking at her like she was a problem to be solved, a vase about to tip over. "Steady," he said. Maisie flinched. It was an instinctive, violent reaction. She jerked her arm away from his grip as if he had burned her, stumbling back a step. Her breath came in short, shallow puffs. She couldn't help it. In her past, a man's grip meant danger. A man's loud voice meant she needed to hide. Alistair frowned, his hand falling to his side. He looked at the trembling woman in the plain grey dress. He saw the fear in her eyes, and he felt a spike of irritation, not at her, but at the entire room, the noise, the pressure, the constant performance. "I don't enjoy women," he said bluntly, looking right at her. "They are always arranging me." Maisie blinked. Her heart was still racing, but the honesty in his voice startled her. He wasn't trying to charm her. He was just tired. Without thinking, the truth slipped out of her, quiet and trembling. I don't enjoy men. They are often louder than they need to be. For a second, the rest of the room didn't exist. The Duke looked at the paid companion, and the paid companion looked at the Duke. It was a strange, silent agreement. I am damaged, his eyes said. I am afraid, her posture answered. Then Lady Honora's dry voice cut through the tension. Wonderful, she muttered, stepping between them. I bring my niece to help with the charity, and she collects a duke with a temper. The spell broke. The room exploded into whispers. Lady Cecily looked furious that the Duke had touched a nobody like Maisie instead of her. My apologies, Alistair said stiffly, though he didn't look sorry. He looked trapped. We must discuss the fundraising, Lady Cecily pressed, sensing he was off balance. If you won't do the gala, Your Grace, you must offer an alternative. The committee requires it. Alistair looked ready to storm out, but he was a gentleman, however bitter. He exhaled a long breath through his nose. Fine, a small salon, at my townhouse, one evening only. I will write the cheque and you will all leave me alone. Excellent, Lady Cecily beamed. I shall arrange the— No, Alistair cut her off cold. You will not arrange anything, Lady Cecily. I do not want you in my house before the event. He pointed a gloved finger toward Lady Honora. Lady Harrow is the chair. She will handle the logistics. Lady Honora smiled a tight, polite smile. I am quite busy, Your Grace. However, my niece, Miss Harrow, is excellent with details. She can oversee the preparations. Maisie's blood ran cold. She looked at her aunt in horror. Me, Maisie whispered. You, Alistair agreed, seemingly relieved to have a buffer between him and the society ladies. Report to Greyhaven House tomorrow at 9. Do not be late. He turned and strode out of the room, the crowd parting for him like water. Maisie stood frozen, clutching her retrieved ledgers. She felt sick. She had to go to the Duke's house. She had to be in his private space, around him, with his loud voice and his towering height. Aunt Honora, Maisie hissed, I cannot do this. You can, her aunt replied calmly, adjusting her shawl. We need the money for the orphanage, Maisie, and frankly, I think you're the only woman in London he hasn't already offended. Just keep your head down and get the cheque. Maisie watched the door where the Duke had vanished. She remembered the heat of his hand on her elbow and the way she had flinched. She remembered his cold, angry eyes. She was terrified. But she also remembered his voice when he said, They are always arranging me. It was the first time she had ever heard a man sound trapped, and terrifyingly, she knew exactly how that felt. Maisie arrived at Greyhaven House at 10 minutes to 9. She stood on the pavement, smoothing her gloved hands over her skirts, reciting her internal list of rules. Don't flinch, don't stare, don't apologize too much, do the work, leave. The townhouse was enormous, a towering block of white stone that looked as impenetrable as its master. She took a deep breath and knocked. The door was opened by Mr. Pritchard, a butler with silver hair and a face that seemed permanently etched with quiet amusement. Miss Harrow, he said, bowing, His Grace is expecting you in the morning room. Maisie followed him through the hallway. It was silent and grand, filled with marble busts and heavy velvet drapes. It felt like a museum, cold and beautiful. They entered a sunny room where Alistair sat behind a desk, reading a newspaper. He didn't stand up when she entered. He just lowered the paper and looked at her, over the rim of his spectacles. You are early, he said. I prefer not to rush, Maisie said, her voice small but steady. Good. He folded the paper. Let us be clear, Miss Harrow. I value efficiency. You are here to organise the charity salon. You are not here to redecorate, to gossip with my staff, or to ask me personal questions. You will work in this room. You will not wander the house. Is that understood? Maisie felt a wave of relief wash over her. He was giving her rules. Rules were safe. Rules meant she knew where the boundaries were. Yes, Your Grace, she answered quickly, perhaps too quickly. I prefer to stay in one place, and I have no interest in your personal life. Alistair blinked, surprised by her lack of offence. Usually, when he gave orders to women, they touted or cried. Maisie Harrow looked relaxed. "Very well," he grunted. "The ledgers are there." For the next 2 hours, the only sound in the room was the scratching of pens and the turning of pages. Mrs. Dallow, the housekeeper, bustled in once with tea. She was a round, practical woman who gave Maisie a nod of approval when she saw Maisie working silently instead of trying to charm the Duke. "Biscuits, dear," Mrs. Dallow whispered. "Thank you," Maisie whispered back. It was peaceful until the door nudged open. A large golden shape trotted into the room. It was a golden retriever, old and slightly overweight, with a coat the colour of burnt sugar. The dog stopped, looked at the Duke, then looked at Maisie. With a happy sigh, the dog walked over to Maisie and flopped down heavily on her feet. Maisie froze. She liked animals, but she was currently under strict orders not to disturb the Duke. She looked up helplessly. Alistair stared at the dog. His hard expression softened into something unrecognisable. "Biscuit," he said, his voice dropping an octave. "Traitor?" The dog thumped his tail against Maisie's ankle but didn't move. I am sorry, Your Grace," Maisie stammered, afraid to move her feet. "He seems to have settled." "He has terrible judgment," Alistair muttered, though there was no heat in it. "He usually avoids strangers. He must smell the toast on you." "I haven't had toast," Maisie said. "Then he just likes you. Inconvenient beast." Alistair stood up and walked over. Maisie tensed, expecting him to shout at the dog or order her to move. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small treat, tossing it to the dog. "Don't get used to her, Biscuit. She's leaving eventually." Maisie watched him. For a moment, the bitterness was gone from his face. He loved the dog. It was a small crack in the armour, but it made him seem human. "Your Grace," Maisie said, seizing the moment of calm. "I've looked at the charity budget Lady Cecily sent over." Alistair groaned, returning to his desk. "How bad is it?" "It's wasteful," Maisie said, her confidence returning when she spoke about numbers. "She has allocated £200 for imported lilies. You have a greenhouse full of winter roses. If we use your flowers, we can use that money for the orphanage heating bill." Alistair looked at her sharply. "You would cut the flowers?" "I would cut the waste," Maisie corrected. "The donors are coming to give money, not to smell lilies. If the goal is to help the children, we should be practical." Alistair studied her. He was used to women who wanted to spend his money to make things look pretty. He had never met one who wanted to save his money to make things work. "You are very unsensible, Miss Harrow." "I have to be," she said quietly. "My aunt's household runs on a tight budget. I support my 2 younger siblings. We cannot afford lilies." Alistair nodded slowly. He respected competence. "Do it. Cut the lilies. And the silk ribbons. Use the money for coal." "Thank you. However," Alistair leaned forward, "Lady Cecily will be furious. She likes spending other people's money." "I know," Maisie said, looking down at her hands. "She can be difficult." "I have a proposition," Alistair said. "I will fund the entire heating bill for the winter. In exchange, you help me ensure Lady Cecily has no control over this event. I want her name off the programme." Maisie swallowed. He was asking her to stand up to the most powerful gossip in London. "She will yell." "Let her," Alistair said. "I will stand behind you. But I need someone who knows the numbers to prove she is incompetent." It was a terrifying offer. But Maisie thought of her brother and sister and the drafty rooms at home, and she thought of how satisfying it would be to stop Lady Cecily from bullying everyone. "Deal," Maisie whispered. Just then, Biscuit the dog stood up, stretched, and calmly stole a bun from the tea tray on the Duke's desk. "Biscuit," Alistair barked. He pointed a finger at the dog. "That is theft. You are a Duke's dog. Act with some dignity." The dog just chewed happily, crumbs falling on the rug. A laugh bubbled up in Maisie's throat. It escaped before she could stop it, a bright, clear sound. She immediately clamped her hand over her mouth, eyes wide with horror. She had laughed at the Duke. Alistair looked at her. He didn't look angry, he looked amused. "Don't encourage him," Alistair deadpanned. "He already believes he is titled." The air in the room felt lighter, safer. Suddenly the peace was shattered. The heavy doors bang open. "Alistair!" Lady Cecily swept into the room without knocking, followed by a flustered Mr. Pritchard. She stopped dead when she saw Maisie sitting there with the dog at her feet. "Oh," Cecily sneered, her eyes raking over Maisie's plain dress. "I didn't realise you were entertaining the help." Maisie shrank back, her shoulders hunching. This was it, the humiliation. But Alistair didn't flinch. He didn't look at Cecily. He kept his eyes on the papers Maisie had organised. "Miss Harrow is here on my authority," he said. His voice was calm, deep, and final. "She is fixing the budget you inflated, Cecily, and she is doing an excellent job." Silence rang through the room. Maisie looked up at him, stunned. He hadn't just defended her, he had claimed her competence as a shield. "Now," Alistair said, looking up with ice in his eyes, "did you knock, Cecily, or has the concept of doors escaped you?" Lady Cecily turned red. Maisie sat straighter. For the first time in years, a man had used his voice not to scare her, but to protect her. 3. The following week, Maisie learned the layout of Greyhaven House by heart. She knew which floorboards creaked and which hallways to avoid if she wanted to stay invisible. But invisibility was becoming harder to maintain. It was Tuesday afternoon. Maisie was carrying a stack of invitations toward the library when she heard shouting. It was coming from the Duke's study. The door was slightly ajar. "I do not care what the law says." Alistair's voice was a jagged edge of fury. "I will not be cornered again. Draft the papers so that no wife, if I ever take one, can touch the Greyhaven Trust." "But Your Grace," a solicitor's voice pleaded, "that is highly irregular. It suggests a lack of trust in—" "I have no trust," Alistair roared. There was the sound of a fist hitting a desk. "I was a fool once. I was grieving, and she used it." She smiled and whispered and nearly took everything. "Never again." Maisie stood frozen in the hallway. Her heart hammered against her ribs. The anger in his voice was physical. It vibrated in the air. Her instinct screamed at her to run, to hide in a closet, to disappear. She took a step back, her shoes scuffing loudly on the parquet floor. The shouting stopped instantly. "Who is there?" Alistair barked. The door swung open. Alistair stood there, his face flushed with rage, his cravat slightly loose. When he saw Maisie, his eyes narrowed. "Spying, Miss Harrow," he snapped. Maisie shook her head violently, clutching the invitations to her chest. "No, no, Your Grace, I was just— the invitations, I heard voices." She took a step back, flinching as he stepped forward. She looked like a deer caught in a trap, her eyes wide and terrified. Alistair stopped. He saw the terror in her face, not just nervousness, but deep, primal fear. He realized he was looming over her, his voice still loud with residual anger. He took a deep breath, forcing his hands to unclench. "I apologize," he said gruffly. "I did not mean to shout at you." "It's fine," Maisie whispered, looking at the floor. "I should go." "Miss Harrow," Alistair said, his voice quieter now. "Why do you do that?" "Do what?" "You flinch. Every time I raise my voice, you look as though I'm about to strike you." Maisie looked at the wall. She wanted to lie. She wanted to say she was just clumsy, but she was tired of lying, and something about the way he had defended her against Cecily made her want to give him the truth. "Because I remember," she said simply. "When men raise their voices, my body remembers things I would rather forget. My father, he was a loud man, and he was not kind." The silence that followed was heavy. Alistair looked at her, really looked at her. He saw the strength it took for her to stand there and say that. He leaned back against the doorframe, crossing his arms, not defensively, but as if to make himself smaller. "I was humiliated," he said. Maisie blinked, looking up. 3 years ago, Alistair continued, staring at the ceiling, a woman named Lady Isabella. I was lonely after my wife died. I was stupid with grief. Isabella was kind. She listened. Or I thought she did. In reality, she was counting my money and telling her friends how easily I could be managed. He looked at Maisie. She threatened to create a scandal if I didn't propose. She said she would ruin my name. I had to pay her off, a small fortune to make her go away. Maisie gasped softly. That is terrible. It was educational, Alistair corrected bitterly. I learned that smiles are weapons. That is why I shout, Miss Harrow. I shout to keep them away, because if I let them close, I am a fool. You are not a fool, Maisie said firmly. You were hurt. There is a difference. Alistair looked at her, stunned by the gentle conviction in her tone. And you, he said softly, are not weak because you flinch. You are surviving. A strange current passed between them. It wasn't romance exactly. It was recognition. They were two soldiers from different wars, showing each other their scars. We are a pair, aren't we? Alistair let out a dry, humourless chuckle. The Duke who hates women and the girl who fears men. It makes for a quiet office, Maisie offered, a small smile touching her lips. Alistair smiled back. It was a real smile, one that reached his eyes. Come, let us look at these invitations. If I have to host this salon, I want to make sure we invite at least 3 people I can tolerate. For the rest of the week, the atmosphere in the house changed. They worked as a team. Maisie handled the practicalities, the caterers, the flowers, the seating charts. Alistair handled the social barriers, refusing to let anyone bully Maisie. Lady Honora noticed the change when she came to inspect the progress. She watched Alistair hold a door open for Maisie, and she watched Maisie walk through it without checking to see if he was angry. Be careful, darling, Lady Honora warned Maisie later as they packed up for the day. A duke is not a safe hobby, he is a life. It isn't like that, Aunt, Maisie said, blushing. We just understand the rules. Rules have a nasty habit of breaking, Honora said. Later that afternoon, a vendor arrived with samples of tea for the salon. He insisted the Duke try his innovative new blends. Alistair, trying to be polite because Maisie was watching, took a sip of something called spiced cucumber surprise. His face contorted. He looked like he had swallowed seawater. Interesting, Alistair choked out. Maisie, standing behind the vendor, pressed a hand to her mouth to stifle a giggle. Alistair caught her eye. He widened his eyes in silent desperation. Maisie couldn't help it. She let out a snort of laughter, turning away to hide her face. Miss Harrow approves, Alistair said deadpan. We shall take £5 of it. When the vendor left, Maisie collapsed into a chair, wiping tears of laughter from her eyes. You bought £5 of cucumber tea. I panicked, Alistair admitted, wiping his mouth with a handkerchief. It tasted like a bog. They laughed together, easy and warm. For a moment, the fear was gone, the bitterness was gone. Then Alistair grew serious. The salon is tomorrow night, he said. Yes, Maisie said, sobering up. Everything is ready. I want you to be there. Maisie froze. To work? Of course. I will be in the kitchen ensuring that... No, Alistair said. I want you in the room, as my organiser, as my guest. Maisie went pale. Your Grace, I cannot. I am a paid companion. People will stare. Lady Cecily will... Let them stare, Alistair said fiercely. You did the work. You deserve the credit. I will not have you hiding in the shadows while they drink the tea you bought and sit on the chairs you arranged. I am about to be seen, Maisie realised with a jolt of panic. Yes, Alistair said, but I will be standing right beside you. It was a promise, and for the first time in her life, Maisie wanted to be brave enough to take it. 4. The night of the charity salon, Greyhaven House glittered. Candles flickered in silver sconces, reflecting off the polished wood and the jewels of the guests. Music drifted from a string quartet in the corner. Maisie stood near the entrance, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. She wore her best dress, A simple navy silk that she had refurbished herself. It was modest but elegant. She felt like an imposter. "Breathe!" Alistair's voice came from beside her. He looked magnificent in formal evening wear, but his jaw was tight. He hated this too. "I am breathing," Maisie whispered, "just very quickly." The guests arrived in a wave of silk and perfume. Lady Honora gave Maisie an encouraging nod from across the room, but most people simply looked through her. To them, she was furniture, until Lady Cecily arrived. She wore crimson, a colour designed to draw every eye. She swept toward the Duke, ignoring Maisie completely. "Alistair," she cooed, "it looks adequate, though I do miss the lilies." "The roses are from the estate," Alistair said coolly. "Miss Harrow chose them. They saved the charity £50. Lady Cecily turned her gaze on Maisie slowly, like a predator spotting a limping rabbit. "Ah, Miss Harrow." Her voice was loud enough to carry. "How quaint. Tell me, do you plan to take up event planning professionally, or is this just a way to advance your station?" The implication was clear. "You are hunting the Duke." Several guests nearby stopped talking to listen. Maisie felt the heat rise in her cheeks. Her instinct was to fold, to apologize, to run. But she looked at Alistair. He was watching her, waiting. He wasn't stepping in yet. He was giving her a chance to stand. Maisie took a breath. "I am here because I work." "I am here because I am competent, Lady Cecily," Maisie said, her voice shaking slightly but audible. "The Duke required an organised budget. I provided one. That should be enough." A ripple of surprise went through the group. Servants didn't speak back. Lady Cecily's eyes narrowed, but before she could retort, a man stepped forward. It was Sir Rowland Fitch, a boorish man known for too much wine and wandering hands. "Competent, are we?" Sir Rowland smirked, stepping too close to Maisie. He reached out and grabbed her arm, his fingers digging in. "I like a competent woman. Perhaps you can organise my evening next, eh?" It happened in an instant. The smell of his wine, the grip on her arm, the leering face. Maisie froze. The room spun. The flashback hit her, her father's grip, the feeling of being trapped. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't speak. She just trembled, her eyes wide with terror. Sir Rowland laughed, mistaking her fear for submission. "Cat got your tongue?" Then the air in the room changed. The temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Let her go." The voice was low, deadly, and vibrated with suppressed violence. Alistair stepped between them. He didn't shove Sir Rowland, he simply occupied the space with such overwhelming authority that Rowland had to release Maisie or be trampled. Sir Rowland stepped back, blinking. "I was just having a joke, Duke. No need to be—" "Sir Rowland," Alistair said. He stood at his full height, his grey eyes blazing with a cold fire. "You will apologise to Miss Harrow, now." The room went deathly silent. Even the string quartet stopped playing. This was it, the moment the room turned. The Duke, who famously despised society women, was publicly defending a paid companion against a titled gentleman. "Apologise," Rowland sputtered. "She's nobody." "She is under my protection," Alistair snarled. "And in this house that makes her your superior. Apologise, or I will throw you out myself." Rowland looked around. He saw the Duke's fists clenched at his sides. He saw the cold fury. He swallowed. "My apologies, Miss Harrow," Rowland muttered. "Leave," Alistair said. Rowland fled, disappearing into the crowd. Maisie stood there, shaking. Alistair turned to her. His anger vanished the moment he looked at her face. He looked ready to tear the world apart to keep her safe. Lady Cecily, realising she was losing control of the narrative, laughed a high, brittle sound. "Oh, Alistair, really? Such drama for a little assistant. One might think she is more than just help. Is she after a title? Is that it?" Alistair turned to Cecily. He looked tired of her, tired of them all. "If Miss Harrow wanted comfort," Alistair said, his voice ringing clear across the silent room, "she would choose someone easier than me. She is here because she has courage, something this room is sorely lacking." He offered his arm to Maisie. Come. He led her out of the ballroom, away from the staring eyes, into the quiet of the corridor. As soon as the doors closed, Maisie slumped against the wall, her legs giving out. Alistair moved to catch her, but he stopped himself. He hovered a foot away, his hands raised but not touching her. He remembered her fear. Maisie, he said gently, may I come closer? Maisie looked up at him. She saw the restraint in his posture. He wanted to hold her, but he was waiting for her permission. He was giving her the control she had lost. Tears pricked her eyes. Yes. He stepped closer, resting his hand on the wall beside her head, sheltering her without trapping her. Are you all right? No, she whispered. That was terrifying. I know. But, Maisie looked into his eyes. You stopped him. I will always stop them, Alistair said fiercely. I promise you that. Maisie let out a shaky breath. I think I am starting to feel safe with you, Alistair, and that frightens me most of all. Alistair looked at her with a raw intensity. Good. We will be frightened honestly, together. He leaned in, his forehead resting against hers. It was a moment of pure, terrifying connection. Your Grace. Mr. Pritchard cleared his throat from the end of the hall. Alistair pulled back, straightening his coat. What is it? Lady Cecily requests a private word in the library, Pritchard said, looking apologetic. She says it is a matter of reputation, immediately. Alistair's jaw tightened. The trap wasn't over. Stay here, he told Maisie. I will finish this. 5. Alistair entered the library. Lady Cecily was standing by the fireplace, sipping champagne. She looked composed, triumphant. Close the door, Alistair. He left it open. Say what you have to say, Cecily. She sighed. You are making a mistake. That display in there? It will be in every paper tomorrow. The Duke and the Nobody. People will laugh. They will say you have lost your mind. Let them talk, Alistair said. I can stop it, Cecily said smoothly. I can tell everyone it was a misunderstanding. I can secure your reputation. I can ensure you are invited to the royal gala. And the price? Send her away, Cecily said, cold. Tonight. Give her a month's wages and send her back to whatever hole she crawled out of. You need a wife, Alistair, a real one, someone who knows how this world works. I am offering you a lifeline. Alistair looked at her. For years he had been running from this exact conversation. He had been angry, bitter, hiding in his house to avoid the manipulation. But now, looking at Cecily, he didn't feel angry. He felt bored. He realized his wound had healed. He wasn't afraid of her anymore. You are offering me a cage, Alistair said quietly. And you are right. I have been living in reaction to people like you for too long, punishing the world so I won't be vulnerable again. I am trying to help you. No, Alistair said. You are trying to own me, and I would rather be disliked for the truth than admired for a lie. He turned to the door. If you walk out to her, Cecily hissed, you will be a social pariah. Then at least I will be in good company. Alistair walked out. He didn't look back. He found Maisie sitting on a bench in the hall, wringing her hands. When she saw him, she stood up. Did she? She offered me an easy exit, Alistair said, if I sent you away. Maisie nodded slowly. It would be the sensible thing to do, for your reputation. Maisie, Alistair said, do you want to go? Maisie looked at the front door. She could leave. She could go back to her safe, invisible life. No shouting, no staring eyes. Then she looked at Alistair. She saw the man who had bought £5 of terrible tea just to make her laugh. She saw the man who had stood between her and danger. No, Maisie said. I don't want to go, but I don't want to be a scandal. Then let us not be a scandal, Alistair said. Let us be a plan. He didn't drop to one knee. He didn't make a grand speech about dying without her. That wasn't them. He took her hands in his. I cannot offer you an easy life, he said. I am difficult. I am loud sometimes. I have a dog with no manners, but I respect you more than anyone I've ever met. He took a breath. I would like to court you, properly, on your terms. I will set up a sitting room for you here where no one, not even I, can enter without permission. You will have your own space. I will arrange an apprenticeship for your brother and a school fund for your sister, so you do not have to worry about them. Maisie stared at him. He wasn't offering a fairy tale. He was offering a life. He was offering safety. You would do that? I would do more, Alistair said, if you let me, but we will start there, slowly. Lady Honora appeared at the end of the hall, her shawl wrapped tight. She had been watching. Love isn't the thunder, you know, the old woman said softly, walking past them toward the exit. It's the daily courage. Maisie looked at Alistair. She felt the fear in her chest, the old instinct to run, but she also felt something new, hope. I am afraid, Maisie said. So am I, Alistair answered, but Maisie squeezed his hands. I can try, if you can try too. Alistair smiled. It was the smile of a man who had finally put down a heavy weight. I can try. 3 months later. The morning sun hit the garden of Greyhaven House. It was quiet, save for the chirping of birds. Maisie walked along the path, her arm linked through Alistair's. She wasn't wearing grey anymore. She was wearing a soft blue that matched the sky. Biscuit the dog trotted ahead of them, carrying a stick he had stolen from the gardener. Did you see the paper? Alistair asked, glancing down at her. I did, Maisie said. They are calling us the quiet match. Lady Cecily is telling everyone she introduced us. Alistair snorted. Unbelievable. Let her have it, Maisie said, leaning her head against his shoulder. She didn't flinch when he moved his arm to pull her closer. We know the truth. They stopped by the fountain. Alistair turned to her, his expression serious. Are you happy, Maisie? Maisie thought about it. She thought about the separate sitting room he had built for her, where she could retreat when the world got too loud. She thought about how he always knocked before entering. She thought about how he loved her, not as a possession, but as an equal. I am, she said. And you? Do you miss the parties? I hate parties, Alistair said. I prefer this. He kissed her. It wasn't a fireworks kiss. It was a warm, steady kiss, a kiss built on trust. From the window of the house, Lady Honora watched them. She took a sip of tea and shook her head. Well, she sighed to herself, love, terribly inconvenient, and still rather worth it.